Yes, hello and welcome to another Searchmetrics Digital Strategies Group webinar. This time we want to present you part one of a series which has 3 parts. It's called Digital Disruption Series. And today we spend time to speak about how traditional enterprises can use digital transformation to avoid extinction. Just in short, how to webinar. So in the next week you will receive an email with a link to the recording of the webinar. Where you can, re-see it, rewatch it. At the edge of the screen, you'll find your audience console. There must be a title audience console somewhere. If you have technical problems, press the question mark. With Q&A, you can ask your questions directly to our speakers, to us. And please, if you have any questions, just throw them in there. At the end of the webinar, it would be great if we have a nice discussion and can answer your question. So there's a small icon you can use at the top of the presentation to move, shrink, or enlarge the presentation if you feel better to have it smaller or bigger. And at the speaker bar, you can directly contact us. And there's a knowledge base you can find where you can find more information on the Digital Strategies Group and the Searchmetrics Black Belt in November. And if you do not see the presentation, just try to update your browser first before you do anything else. Just in short, this webinar will last for 45 minutes. We will, at the end, as I said, answer all the questions. If you have some questions, please put them in the team chat so that we can answer them. I just want to remind you, this is a 3-part webinar series. We start today with the traditional enterprise digital transformation part. On the 17th of January 2019, there will be the second part where we show you how to win the e-commerce battle and just looking at building a niche in the e-commerce field to compete against Amazon and eBay-like companies. And part 3 will be all about digital publishing. Where we say that display advertising for publishers is dead. So the business model newspapers had in the past and just converted to the digital world doesn't work at all. And we show you 5 new ways how to turn content into revenue. My name is Björn. I'm the Director of Digital Strategies Group here at Searchmetrics.
Hello from me as well. I'm allowed to speak now. My name is Svetlana Stankovic, and I am team lead of SEO consulting as well inside of Searchmetrics Digital Strategies Group.
And the Searchmetrics Digital Strategies Group is an integrated consultancy within Searchmetrics. So our team of data scientists, we have content strategists and SEO consultants and marketers here sitting here in Berlin in our headquarters and helping our clients, of course, to unlock the mysteries of online performance. So just in short, our vision here is to lead innovation in search and content. And I think it describes our work pretty well because we are not satisfied with the status quo. We always look for new inventions. So we are offering consulting from the SEO part, content services, as well as strategic consulting. But let's start some of our clients and starting with our topic today.
Yeah, I'm super excited because digital transformation is a huge topic inside of Digital Strategies Group, as our name would say. But let's start with our first topic for today. This is digital first is now. So we all know that our world is changing and we see it all around us. And like Björn said, our time is time of the 4th industrial revolution. We would say digital revolution because everything around us is digitalizing. And if we would get from 20 years ago to now, I think this world would be looking really futuristic.
I think so too. Like,
yes,
all the books you had as a child where you saw like flying cars and stuff.
Yes.
I mean, it's not so far away from that, right?
Not so far, but look at, we are augmented reality and everything that we are facing now. So definitely our world is changing and all the companies must adapt if they don't want to disappear. This sounds a little bit frightening, but it is basically the truth. When we look at the main examples all around the world that we see, of course, one of the most popular brands online and predominantly online brand that now is trying also to open offsite stores. But let's see Amazon, for example, We had bookstores. How many times do you go to a bookstore today?
Never.
How do you buy a movie? How much do you spend going in a cinema? So everything you do from Amazon. And Amazon started as an online bookstore, and a lot of offline bookstores and even online got destroyed by this huge brand.
And look at them today. I mean, they're not only selling books, they're one of the biggest retailers.
Yes, exactly. They're one of the biggest retailers in the world. Second example is Netflix, and not only Netflix, we have also different video providers of TV, of movies and series and so on. But when we look at the way that we approach watching movies and spending our free time, it's completely the same as it was 20 years ago. Because even 10 years ago, we had TV program, we have it now in the television as well, but we have much more choice to choose what we want to see, when we want to see it, and we want to subscribe to specific topics or specific things that we like to watch. So this is definitely something that's been transformed as well. Then we have a third example. And third example is newspapers are turning into Google. Google is now the largest provider of all news, of all topics that we want to research online. So when we want to know what happened in any industry or what's going on now, or to search for a celebrity or anything else, earlier on we needed to buy specific newspapers or niche-oriented newspapers and magazines. Now we read everything on Google. And I think that if any of publishers are attending this webinar, they know how much threat they receive from Google nowadays.
No. But you can clearly say that like Google today is a newsstand. It's a kiosk where you can buy your news. You don't buy the news, but you can read news, whatever you want. You just search a term and you get news.
Exactly. It's definitely the largest online kiosk, and we'll see how will it develop in the future. But this is definitely something that's changed from classical publishing to now. When we talk about digitalization, we hear a lot from companies that we speak with, and when we attend conferences, we hear people saying, yes, we are digitalized now. How? Well, we have an app, or we have our own website, and it's not enough to have an app to be digital. This is something completely else. When we talk about digital transformation, we really like this quote from Loic Talon, if I am pronouncing his name correctly, but it's from the Met Museum. And what he said is digital transformation places existing practices under the microscope, questions long-standing truths, and disrupts the traditional hierarchies. To successfully deliver digital transformation, teams need to work creatively within a zone of psychological safety, where discomfort is safe, permitted, and even encouraged.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect way to see it, because you need to break existing structures. You really need to break them. You need to shake everything and turn it around, and then see what you get out of it.
Yeah, traditional pillars are definitely moving, and companies are going, even if they don't want. This is really interesting. Even if traditional company wants to stay in the comfort zone, they cannot. Because the competition is not staying there. The competition is transforming digitally, and this is the way that they're being pushed into transformation in order to survive. So even if they say no, it's a big threat still. You cannot avoid it. Let's have a look at the companies who learned from digital transformation failure. And we really, really are big fans of these examples, because when you look at the companies, you will see that most of these companies are known as digitally transformed, or we think of them as digitally transformed companies. The first example that we have is Nike. The story with Nike goes like this. On 2010, they opened a digital unit called Nike Digital Sport. This digital unit created fitness tracker. Maybe you heard of it. It's called Nike Fuel Band, and they had really huge initial success. And all of a sudden in 2014, it was cut. Nike announced cutting digital sport workforce as well for around 70 to 80% of people, and discounting Nike Fuel Band after being unable to work with the data and being unable to find skilled staff, and they simply couldn't continue developing the product. So they learned the lesson not to digitalize outside of the company and focus on one brand and one strength, rather pushing digitalization inside of the all parts or all departments of the company itself.
Yeah, and today we know Nike is one of the most digital sports brands in the world, right?
Exactly, and they did it really well in the end, but this example from the beginning, I think it's example that all of three companies that we will mention now are sharing, and this is their struggle of how to digitalize. Second one, also really known brand, Ford. What they did in 2014, they opened a new segment called Ford Smart Mobility. Their idea was to develop digital-enabled cars and mobile solutions for cars. What they did as a huge mistake is placing this Ford Smart Mobility division very far from Ford headquarters. And this is already a sign you want to digitalize and to reshape your brand and your company, but you're placing digital division outside. This is something that most of traditional companies do because they don't want to be touched. They don't want to implement their core changes. So placing this division outside and working again solely on Ford Smart Mobility, their share price fell by almost 40% in stock options. And now they needed to change company goal, of course, and their new company goal is to implement digital strategy into their core business. We have third example, also huge company called General Electric. Instead of focusing on company's overall transformation, General Electric opened again, as our two previous examples, GA Digital in 2015. So they invested heavily into digital unit, but they couldn't stop continuous drop in stock value at all. Even their healthcare division launched Predix. This is powered health cloud. It's kind of industrial internet platform, but they didn't achieve expected growth. New strategy of their new CEO is selling GE Digital and focusing on more strategic digital transformation.
So all three actually have the same in common, right? So they wanted to spin off the digital transformation efforts, and it didn't work out. And so now they're going back and try to install the digital transformation in the core of the businesses, which is the right approach.
Yeah, this is also example in digital marketing, not really related to these examples, but usually people say, do we want to have separate marketing department and digital marketing? But everything is digital. We don't live in analog world anymore. And these examples from these companies are showing you cannot just outsource digital division and pretend that company and core business is still outside of it. Yeah. And I think this doesn't work.
You maybe remember, because we both were working for Ringier,
yes.
You maybe remember in the early days of the digital transformation of those newsrooms, they still had like a print desk and an online desk.
They kept it separate.
Yeah, they kept it separately. That's actually the wrong approach, right? So you need to have like a digital first strategy. So everybody's actually publishing for digital, and then you can take it out and.
Yeah, what companies need to realize that it's a long road. It requires a lot of changes, and it needs to be done step by step. And this is our next topic, I think, where we can talk about it a bit more, how to do it. Yeah. So we now diagnose the problem, but let's see how to do it and how to face the problem.
So let's have a look at the current state of digital transformation here. And let's start just with the figure that, 89% of organizations have adopted or plan to adopt a digital first strategy, which shows like that the demand and the, awareness for that topic is already there. So the majority of it is already working there. But, as you can imagine, there are, obstacles they need to turn over. So, and one of the biggest obstacles is still like sufficient budget. So they don't have enough budget to invest in them. I don't know if this is like a lack of prioritization, business prioritization or so, but this is actually the fact here. And the second biggest one is lack of staff and correct skill set, followed by old legacy system, like replacing them. So breaking really the core habits of the company, and then cultural issues. But luckily, we are covering all three, like the last three in this webinar, and give some examples how to overcome these obstacles. So let's just have a look at the goals of digital transformation for most companies. First of all, they want to drive revenue growth, for sure, because some users are switching to digital devices. They have different habits, digital habits. They have different demands, and so you need to streamline your business actually on all those devices where the users actually
And many companies are already losing a lot of money.
Exactly.
So when the goal is drive revenue growth, this is also a goal to stop losing money.
Exactly. Again, like take a newspaper. If you're just focusing on print news and you say, okay, digital news is nothing in your interest, then you will lose some revenue because you can have much more advertising revenue. Probably you can have much more reader for your news, and this will attract more and more readers and companies as well who want to advertise. So you're losing actually a lot of revenue there. Secondly, is like create better customer experience as a goal of digital transformation, which perfectly makes sense because there's no other world where you can measure and learn out of this data. You measure so many things about your customer behavior. So this is really good. And the third one is like improve employee productivity. So getting, away from old analog workflows and processes and, systems, now getting software into place, CRMs and all the kind of stuff, which makes it more productive for employee to work on that stuff. I mean, the smallest example you can say is like Excel. How the productivity of an employee because of Excel or PowerPoint or what you have is so much higher since we have those tools, right? So and then last but not least, like improve process efficiency through automation. So all these analog and manual workflows you had before are now done by machines, by computers, and by a logical order of a process. So you see, like we covered the goals and the obstacles, but also they are like the benefits covering actually the obstacles and challenges companies have, right? So grow revenue is one of the biggest benefit for digital initiatives, or increase profits, like lowering the cost, achieve cost savings, create better customer experience, and innovate our products or your products. Because as I said, if you have a lot of data, because you digitalize your business, you have like, an app, you have a website, you have like tracking in place, you have everything you can actually measure and improve out of this. So just let's have a look of all these old non-online companies, like who's doing best when it comes to digital transformation. And the one that is like finance. Finance is a company,
that recognizes revenue growth.
An industry which recognizes revenue growth, and they can't afford to lose customers because, a bank without a customer who puts money on the bank is, it's dead. So I have like found one example I really want to dive into. Probably less people have heard of it. It's not something like, Lloyd's Bank or so, but it's Fidelity. It's actually the third biggest or impactful financial institute in the world. They do worldwide investments, so you as a user can actually put your money in there, buy some funds, and then you can trade funds, right? So this company exists since 1946. It has more than 60,000 employees, or 40,000 employees, I'm sorry. And what they did is actually they managed to, bring those desktop trading experience into an app. And the app is rated, so you have 500,000 ratings in the App Store, 500,000, and it's rated 4.7 out of 5 points. So people really like this app. And I mean, it goes with what you said in the beginning, right? So it's not you're not digitalized when you have an app. But you are digitalized if all the processes before you publish the app are so-called,
and if user experience is that great that you have 4.8 in Apple Store.
Exactly, because what normally is the case, and that from your experience as well as I do. Normally it's like you're hiring an agency, you spend a lot of money for the agency. It's like, can you please do this app? Can you please do this website? But it doesn't help at the end to digitalize, the company's core, like all these processes which lead to the awesome result of those apps, because it does an agency for you. And at the end, nobody in the company knows how to improve, knows how to, listen to customer feedback and improve the app. So it's actually wrong. But Fidelity did it really well. There are a lot of YouTube videos you can watch from their people working for the digital unit and working on those apps. It's really, really good, really sophisticated. And of course, last but not least, I mean, it's a traditional financial institute fighting against all these fintech companies, which are just raising out of the ground like mushrooms.
Yeah, but it's a great example that it can be done.
Yeah, it can be done. You just need to focus on the right things.
Okay, so let's go to our third part. And again, we say we have 4 pillars of digital transformation. And this is a large recommendation to companies to take a look at all 4 of it in order to implement digital transformation inside of their company. Maybe you will not be able to do everything that we mentioned today, but at least take a look and see how can you approach this and how can you implement it in your own company. Pillars of digital transformation. The first one is people. When we look at our previous slides, we always mention user experience, employer productivity, employer satisfaction. So putting people on the first place rather than putting profit and company goals is something that startups do from the beginning, I would say. Traditional companies, not that much, but if you have a lack of skills or skilled staff, like we saw this example with Nike or Ford, then you definitely need to put people on the first place in order to attract them, because simply they don't want to work for traditional companies anymore if there are no added value and nothing else, but we'll talk about it a bit more. Then we, of course, have technology as something that is really important when you digitalize. We have workflow and processes within the company. And last but not least is a culture. So let's start from people and explore how is it like in traditional companies and what is different from traditional to startup and how can we learn and make it better. First mistake traditional companies do most of the time, and we see it definitely a lot. This is wrong people on right positions or right people on wrong positions. And I want to explain a bit more because this sounds really bad, but we see it a lot of the time when people go from position of traditional marketer to digital marketing, or a company that has financial sector that takes responsibility for technology, or different mixtures. We have a chief innovation officer who started career is doing something that was completely offline and now is in charge to implement the whole digitalization in the company when this person doesn't even know the vocabulary of digital transformation. And this is something that is really, really easily spotted. We have 2 phases of digital transformation, just to make a bit of fun and easygoing story around it, because we don't want to be harsh to traditional companies. This is not our goal, just to mention it in this webinar. When we look at the left side, we have a person who is probably a director or C-level manager who is really slow, who spends a lot of the time doing nothing. And this is usually how it goes, right? We know all of the movies, series and everything where we see people who, when you become a director, you don't have to work anymore.
That's true.
Right? I think this is what our parents or our elderly people around us used to tell us. You just need to get to a high position and then you don't have to work. Everyone works for you.
I'm the best example.
Well, from your own opinion, since there is a director sitting next to me, can you tell me how much do you work during your working day?
A lot.
A lot. Yeah, exactly.
Lot. Yeah.
And it's not the same.
No, it's not regularly 9 to 5. That's for sure.
That's for sure, definitely. And on the right side, we see someone who belongs to your persona group, I would say. And this is a person who, as you said, doesn't work from 9 to 5, doesn't care about obstacles, and is high performer or a high achiever. And these 2 persons cannot compete. And if you put them in the same company, or if any of this persona is placed on the wrong position, it will be horrible. Because imagine using the left example, leading a digital company or using the right example placed inside of traditional company with doing nothing.
Yeah, you're right.
Most of the time, because we work a lot with SEO industry, we hear SEO saying, I got this position as in-house SEO, no one wants to optimize anything, I'm just sitting there doing nothing, and then I decided to quit.
Yeah.
And this is exactly the person from the right.
Yeah.
So how to attract people who want to digitalize your company and who want to give you extra value? Biggest obstacles, as we said, we need to go through it again. So putting people with old mindset on your digital position, then offering wrong added value. This means that digital savvy staff and people want freedom and not money. So no matter how much you offer as a payment, if people feel that they cannot show their curiosity, if they're led by fear, if you do not accept changes, these people will not stay, even for large salaries. And we know this, especially in digital industries. We know a lot of people who get amazing positions on the paper, but they leave it simply because they don't see each other working in a traditional company that doesn't improve or doesn't approach.
Yeah, it's always like you feel like you're being Michael Schumacher sitting in an old timer.
Exactly.
You know?
We can say it like that. So when implementing changes, allow people to express their ideas and concerns, because a lot of the time leaders need to have people who are smarter than them, and they need to listen to people and they need to trust them. If this is not the case, then you are led by one person, and this can usually end up badly. And not knowing is okay, but it's also a good starting point. Companies who don't like to admit their mistakes are companies that are really hard to digitalize. Because imagine if a company launches a website that doesn't work or app that doesn't work. And usually with traditional companies, they invest a lot of money and they want to see results. And if they don't see results, they stick to their old patterns instead of approaching it differently and trying to change everything and learn from people feedback. And this is really, really important. So what do millennials want and how to attract them? This is question after all of the speech. 75% of workers will be millennial generation until 2025. So if you are sitting now in traditional company or working closely with traditional companies and thinking, I don't need this, I have regular people working for me, I don't have this digitalized savvy people, I don't need them, my company is functioning well, think about this number. 75% of workers will be people who have millennial mindset really, really soon.
So that actually says that you need to be prepared now for that time, because I mean 2025 is not that far away.
It's just around the corner. This is also really different. 2 years is average how much millennials stays in one job compared to previous generations where the number is from 5 to 10 years of being in the same company, sometimes even in the same position. So when we look at CVs of people from traditional companies, we usually see that they switch from one traditional company to another, and they have a long time span inside of the company. But for digital savvy people, this is maybe also a good learning for HR. Usually old HR teams or any human resources department that does recruiting processes, when they see that a person is changing companies really quickly, they say, okay, this person doesn't really, it's not a valuable person. I mean, they switch after 3 months, 6 months, or 2 years. What's going on with them? They're not stable enough. But this is exactly how millennials function. And in order to keep them, you simply need to have different approach as a people value inside of your company, rather for keeping someone who will not work for several years and just keep their own position.
Like my grandpa, every other grandpa. My grandpa was working 30 years for Volkswagen.
Exactly.
So 30 years.
This is a great example, and I can give you an example of my really good friend who was working in IT company for 11 years, and when he wanted to switch to a different job, everyone inside of startup community asked, why did you stay for so long? What's wrong? And they even HR from startup company were really scared, will he be able to adapt? Because he was not moving so much, will he be able to adapt to a new company? 45% of millennials choose workspace flexibility over salary. So maybe we can say also as a Searchmetrics and different software as a service companies, workspace flexibility, having time to choose when to work, how to work, do you want to stay in home office? This is something that is really important.
Yeah.
So we don't go, we don't track our 5 p.m. leaving from the work or coming exactly at 9 or staying home. We trust people and we want to make sure that people deliver results and perform rather than just sitting somewhere and wasting their time. And I think this is something that you can see in every startup company. And another one, this is really, really interesting, 15% of working force millennials is already on management positions today.
Which is not a high number, actually.
It's not high.
But here's the problem I see. Oh, what the problem? I mean, from my experience, the problem is like if you have somebody in the millennial age, which is between what 17 and 37 or something.
Something like that.
Something like that. So you have somebody who's rather young, you know, like me. I'm 38. I'm out of the millennial.
You are not millennial anymore.
But you know, you go in those traditional companies, sitting on a management position, and you're leading a team where people are there since 20, 30 years. You know, from the age they could be your father, right? So, and you are sitting there, and you should lead them. And it's for both sides. It's a very, very, challenging situation because you as a young leader, you don't have that much experience. So the company actually must give you enough training to deal with, those generations as well. And this generation is probably pissed because they're sitting there working the asses off since 30 years. And, what's the benefit? You get a young person in front of you who's managing you and, you are actually the expert in the company. So it's a very tricky situation, I think. And, this is, I think, the biggest challenge, not only for those people sitting in this leading positions, but also for HR and the companies to give enough training to deal, because not everybody has good social skills and good leading skills. You know that from your experience, and I'm pretty sure all the listeners know that as well. Just because you have a boss doesn't mean he's a good boss, right?
Yeah. You are a good boss. Don't look at me like that. Okay, so let's see how to attract actually millennials and what to offer to them in order to keep them. So first of all, they value freedom, as we discussed it, and they like inspiring people and company culture. And when we speak about older generations as well, digitalized companies really value diversity. So I think having someone from older generations inside of a team that is younger or vice versa can be really beneficial for both. But if you inspire people to work together, and if you find what are the shares that they can use, how can they split the work, sometimes it's really good to have people with experience communicating with people with less experience, but maybe more digital knowledge. And they also want fun at work. They want to change the world. This is our idea of a person who still belongs to millennial. We all want to do something inspiring. So we want to be appreciated. We want regular feedbacks. We don't want politics or competition. And I think we all want to change the world, at least our world, into something better.
Okay, so let's move on to the second pillar, which is technology. And, with technology, it's like you as a manager and sitting in the board, or you as a managing director, you actually have to encourage change. And I just want to quote the CEO of Ringier, because I remember, when I was working for Ringier, it's a big publisher in Switzerland, by the way, and was middle in the digital transformation of the newsroom. So a lot of new systems, a lot of new workflows, a lot of new people were actually joining this newsroom, and people were actually overwhelmed with everything of this. And Mark Walter, the CEO of Ringier, actually said he is actually expecting from everybody a steep learning curve. And this summarizes it quite well, right? With all these new changes, you as an employee, you actually have to adapt, and you have to be open for that change, and you have to be willing to learn. So this is really, really nice. But let's look at technologies to which companies actually are using to support the digital transformation. And there's no wonder, of course, there are a lot of software as a service, so browser-based software they use for various reasons. One example could be, Searchmetrics as a software you can use for like measuring the performance of your online performance, right? Or, tracking keywords or what you have. Then you have like security and privacy technologies, because you're digital, you're collecting a lot of data, you need to secure the data, especially now with the GDPR regulations, right? Or you don't want to have a leak, like a data leak like Facebook, and then, it can really, really hurt your business. So you have to make sure that everything you collect and everything you work on, be it salary reports, be it like CVs, be it like personal information of your employee, that this is secured. So you really have to invest a lot of money there. So you have mobile application. Let's say you have your service, it was running on a website, but now it's shifting everything to mobile. So you have to have a mobile application, or you have to have a mobile site and bring in everything to that small screen as well. And then, of course, data analytics software to track everything, measure everything, and then you can improve customer engagement software, just like Salesforce or Sugar as a CRM, where you can actually, have all your customer data in there and manage that. And there are so many more, like Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, blockchain, augmented reality. But this is just like for a smaller portion. Not everybody is dealing with it. A publisher can actually deal with VR, augmented reality, to bring the stories, in a more digital way to the reader. It's, I would say, it's not common. But so for me, just to summarize it, digital transformation is not to invest in a website or creating in an app or create an online shop. And I really want to underline the word investing here, because what I said before, it's not just, you can have a great app, you can have a really good website. But the thing is, if you invest in it, that means that you give money to an agency, then it's the wrong approach. You need to invest in all these processes before, and the end result will be a great website or a great app. But the processes before mean you invest in people, you invest in the culture, and you invest in your digital transformation, so that people are really willing and encouraged to build something amazing. So meaning, for me, digital transformation is actually finding your niche specific. So like finding a niche where you can be really, really good, like take Netflix, streaming, that's a niche, right? Or you have a special shop for shoes, like Zalando. In the earlier days, they were just like a shoe seller. Now they're one of the biggest fashion brands in Europe. So finding a niche and try to be perfect in that niche, and then offer better service than your competitor. And nowhere else in the world is better to actually observe and do benchmark analysis with your competitors, right? You can just click on a website, see, how they're doing, what are they like, what is their approach, how they talk to people, how's their product, etc. I mean, if you remember, I don't know, was it Zalando or one brand before Zalando where they just copied the eBay code? Or they just copied the source code from an American company, and there was a copycat in the beginning?
I'm not sure.
It was one Rocket Internet, if I remember. Mm-hmm. But anyway. And then you have like to improve user experience with your customers. And that's nowhere it's easier than in a digital world as well.
And this is really important. This is really important because usually, as you mentioned on the previous slide, companies develop a website, but they don't really know what to do with the website. And sometimes this website doesn't really work for their audience, and user experience gets really horrible. But since they invested billions into digital transformation, quote unquote, they simply don't touch it, and then the business is going down. So it's not bad to invest in making digital changes. And also, of course, we don't attack agencies, so it's okay to work with agencies, but you need to have someone in-house who has a vision, and mission, and who wants to lead the way of digital transformation.
And this is actually the hardest part for the traditional companies, because before the digital age, they were actually saying what is important for a user, what is important for your target group, what is important for your client, right? And now the client says what he wants, and you have to listen to it, and then it's a big mind shift. It's a big shift in the way you work and the way you think, right? And I think it's really hard. Like take publishing, you know, in publishing, there's an editor-in-chief and there's like a team of editors who actually say, okay, this is the story the reader wants to read, without even asking the reader. And the reader goes to Google and search for a lot of terms, you know, which is trending. You take those trends to editors and they say, no, our reader doesn't want to read this. And that's the wrong attitude, right? And then it's, of course, like you have to create an impact. Just take Tesla. I mean, Tesla is selling today more cars in the US than BMW and Mercedes together. That's an impact. Take Uber, you know, they were just shaking the whole taxi and transportation system with their services. That's an impact. Take Airbnb, they check the whole hotel industry, like upside down. That's an impact, right? And then, of course, reshape your market. That's the same, like you're disrupting a market. You're setting new standards and everybody has to follow. Like take e-commerce, for example, you know, we are used to it that we don't sell for delivery, right? There are still some companies, e-commerce companies, who charge you for delivery. You know, yes. Would you order your stuff at that company because you know you can get it somewhere else for free delivered? No.
Yeah, I can get it on Amazon anyways.
Yeah. And Amazon is the best example. I mean, from a user experience and, you know, breaking down all the hurdles, Amazon is actually the best example. I mean, this is just convenient. It's convenient like a, you know, like a cell.
And it's also really important to know that when market is reshaping, you need to reshape as well. Yeah. So if Amazon is dominating, when there is any other company like Netflix, or we have thousands of examples probably that we will not mention today, you need to understand your market and to reshape to your market. Because if your audience is doing it differently and you insist of your own way, it's not going to work. It maybe worked before, but now you will receive.
Definitely. And just last but not least, embrace new technologies, be open for that technologies, be open to test, be open to work with them, and be more innovative, less predictive. Challenge the status quo all the time.
We came to the third pillar of digital transformation. This is workflow. And this is really interesting one because with the workflow, we will explore how startups work and what is the major difference that often leads to success of new businesses or software as a service businesses, and what do they do differently. It's no longer the big beating the small, but the fast beating the slow. And this is really something that traditional companies have as their core problem to change is everything lasts for so long because there are improvements of all levels, profit improvements, ideas from different departments, different divisions in the company, and everything lasts for so long. I think average time of building a new website and transferring from offline to online shop is around 2 years. And for 2 years, everything will change. We don't know in 2 years will shopping be based on augmented reality. And imagine if someone sets a project now and this project lasts for 2 years without any change. That's horrible and simply doesn't work. It doesn't work like that anymore. Traditional companies need to act more like a startup, less like old school, hard to handle workspace. And yeah, we do understand it's sometimes really hard because you're not a startup. You don't sit in a room, open space with 200 people. You have company that is maybe thousands of people sitting in different companies with different people leading different divisions. So it's really hard to connect, but implementing things into the workspace and the way you work and perform can benefit for your company. We have a quote. Oh no, this is actually an example at the beginning, but we'll have a quote later on. What is Lean Startup? Lean Startup is a methodology of developing businesses and products which aims to shorten product development cycles and rapidly discover if a purposed business model is viable. This is achieved by adopting a combination of business hypothesis-driven experimentation, iterative product releases, and validated learning. So this means from having an idea to present a plan and to stick to the plan for 2 years, Lean startups suggest that you constantly improve your product, constantly test and measure, and know actually how is it performing. When you look at the Lean startup methodology, we will see, of course, you start with building something, but you want to measure. And when we say measure, this is success of a product, this is user experience, this is design, effectiveness, everything all together. Then from this measurement, you want to learn to be able to build, to rebuild. And you don't do it all at once, you do it in simple steps. So you are ready to have your minimum viable product for the beginning, so-called MVP, so you can track and measure first early adopters of your software or your product that you have, and then gaining all of this information, you can see what to do with it and who to target.
It's actually perfect for testing business models, right?
Yes.
You just quickly do a prototype, go out in the market, ask users if they can test it, and then learn from how's it adapted by users, and learn from it, and then you have an iterative process to rebuild and reshape it. Like it's really good and really fast to do, right?
Yeah, it's really fast to get results back, but I think that putting analytics and measurements into the core of your strategy is really important, because without analysis, you don't know what to do. And this usually, in the end, costs less money than investing heavily into digital transformation, because you don't have to build huge, robust products from the beginning. You can just build a small online shop, take one user group and test how it works. Is it okay with the way your app functions? Is user flow, user experience, how does it work? And then from this, you can continue developing and switching departments to, for example, online shopping or publishing or so on. So you don't do everything at once. And this is what makes it maybe more efficient. And you learn a lot from your business. What questions do you ask from building a new product? Because you definitely need to ask them as a company. And the questions are, do consumers recognize that they have the problem they are trying to solve? Because if you're offering something and no one knows what are you offering, how do you think this will work online? And this is usually the case with traditional companies who switch to online. If there was a solution, would they buy it? Are you offering something? You had a really great example of shipping costs when you order something online. Would anyone buy from this kind of company? And what you do in order to get these customers? This is the main question. Would they buy it from us? So would they trust us as a brand? There is a brand recognition, and can we build solution for that problem? So it's always focusing on a problem in the market rather than being the smartest person in the room and trying to put your own ideas in front of everyone. We will talk about the second approach. This is design thinking that many startups use, but also we can see some larger companies trying to work around and implementing. Design thinking is a method designers use for ideation and development, and it has also applications everywhere in building processes to build a product. So this method is really human-centered, and we can see how it goes. So it starts from empathize or learn about your audience, as we said. Then you need to define or construct point of view based on user needs. Then you get to ideas. So first you empathize, define, and then you get to ideas, and you brainstorm and come up with creative solutions, which leads to prototypes. So until the fourth step, you don't create a product. This is really like a complete opposite approach than traditional companies do. And when you build a prototype, you want to test it.
And I can just give like an example, because I did those design thinking workshop already. And it's really like you're sitting in an offsite somewhere with a team. You know, you're framing what you actually want to achieve after this workshop. It's actually just defining, okay, what should be the outcome? Right? And empathizing is just like learning about your audience. It's just like, you know, you're not Googling, or you're not going to the internet and check what's my target group. No, you have questions about your product, and you go out and you just stop people walking by and say, hey, can you please use this app? And so how do you like it? How do you navigate? How do you read, you know, specific things? How do you, you know, buy? What do you do exactly? And you're asking so many questions to user, and you're just doing these interviews and writing down everything. You're asking a lot of people, and with all those questions, you actually then go and define, okay, how can we solve, you know, when a user is reading newspapers or is reading news in the evening at the sofa, then he's probably just using, you know, a tablet or a mobile phone. So the problem here is not focusing on desktop, but it's focusing on how can we deliver those news there. And just to jump, like after you have all these ideas, you do brainstorm, of course, you need to filter that you have just the pearls out of it. But the prototype is the funniest thing of all, because there are no regulations actually. You can actually just draw it on paper, a prototype. You can just like put, carton together. You can stick stuff together. You can put it on a window. There are actually no limits how to do this prototype. It should just at the end be like imaginable how to use it, and just to, test your ideas against it. It's a really funny thing to do. I really like it, the approach.
Yeah, I really love design thinking as well, because I think it benefits a lot, and I think it's perfect for traditional companies because they have human force and they have a lot of departments that can help and jump in and offer experience. And also, since they're existing for a long time, they have a lot of experience in business. They just need to switch the mindset in order to get to the result. And we have a third approach, which is agile development or agile method. This is an approach to project management that is made predominantly for software development. And what is really special about agile development, it uses iterative work sequences that are commonly known as sprints. So a lot of configuring, testing, releasing, building, and designing. So development focus on continuous improvement cycle rather than just doing it all at once, as we mentioned how traditional companies do. And they're exposing flaws faster and they are reducing waste. So constantly improving, working in small cycles is like having milestones and checking out regularly and prioritizing every type of the work.
Yeah, and the good thing is that if you develop in that small sprints, you always get feedback, and on the go you can improve the product.
Yeah, you can improve it constantly, and I'm really happy to see that many traditional companies, especially their software departments, are already working in agile processes, and this is really amazing because I think they can achieve more and the value is achieved faster. And release arrives to customer more frequently than waiting for long and slow projects. So what are the main advantages of our third example? This is shorter development cycle, wider market windows, early customer feedback, and of course, as we mentioned already, continuous improvement.
Okay, then we come to our last but very, very important pillar, because from my experience, one of the most important one as well, because this goes along with people. If you, as a company, you create the right culture, then people, no matter if they're digital or not, are able to do some awesome stuff. So, this is something where companies really try to accomplish objectives of the digital transformation. And the biggest one is to promote a continuous innovation culture. And it's like, it's all about communication here as well, but then walk the talk as well. Like if you plan initiatives and you say, look, we are now changing, the meeting rooms, they get like a nice, design, or we have like a playground somewhere where you can play table tennis. We will have some chill launches as well. So if you plan those stuff, you really need to walk the talk. I experienced that, there are awesome plans, awesome ideas they do, but then it takes like ages before they really implement it. So you really have to showcase as well that you're willing to do it as well. So who's responsible actually for leading digital transformation in companies? And as you can see here, most of the time it's like the chief intelligence officer with 37% in those companies, CEOs as well, 24%. But what is more and more common now is that traditional companies are actually putting chief digital officers into the board as well. And those are mainly people who are really, from the digital industry, who, work for startups, who work for companies, e-commerce companies, and bring a lot of knowledge to the board. And that they put it to the board is again another, proof that it's really, really important for them to do. So company culture is all about people, that's for sure. Encourage communication between departments, that's really, really important. Establish flat hierarchy and promote diversity. If you're C-level, managers lead by example. And this is actually another big thing which I like, because if you go to traditional companies, you hire, you go up in the building, the more important the people are, right?
Yes.
So all the boards are sitting in the 6, 7, 8, 10, I don't know how high the building is, floor, and all the normal workers, middle management are sitting somewhere else. But this is actually the wrong approach. Look at like a Mark Zuckerberg, or look at people, managers or CEOs from big digital companies. They're all sitting together in open offices, right? So then this is actually really important, because you need to encourage the people. You need to be at the product. You need to be at the core as well if you want to do it. And the next cartoon is actually a nice one. Perkins, so a guy in a suit says to a guy in a statement T-shirt, "Perkins, we need to talk about your understanding of company culture, because it seems you didn't get it."
Yeah.
And it's a funny thing, because it happens all the time today. You have like dress codes in companies. They go to a bank. If you come with a T-shirt there, it's not going to work, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, I just had a look at some company values of some digital unicorns as well, and you see a pattern there. So when we look at Twitter, Twitter says, we want to focus on impact, move fast, be bold, be open, and build social value. Netflix wants judgment, communication, curiosity, innovation, courage, passion, selflessness, inclusion, integrity, and impact. And the values of this Scrum methodology are commitment, courage, openness, respect, focus. And this is different from traditional companies, because it's very about, hey, you are the voice, bring it up. You are actually building stuff. Do it. Show us how to do it.
Not searching for a fault.
Exactly.
Who did it?
Exactly. So be encouraged really to do stuff. And if we just summarize all these digital company core values, then I come up with collaboration is something which is really important. So everybody together, transparency, not, the manager knows more than, the specialists and stuff. It's really about transparency, constantly communicating and communicating how the company is doing stuff. Creativity, empowering and encouraging creativity.
Being also user-centered and focusing on impact. When we talk about creativity, this is finding the right people who will be voice of your digital transformation. I think it's really amazing in traditional companies when we see CEOs going forward and offering support. We saw it in EMEA. We can see it in many different companies. When CEOs are switched to online, they understand the business and they want to surround themselves with people, and also having user-centered approach, moving fast, being bold, creative, transparent. Transparency is also something that traditional companies sometimes lack, but I think it will change definitely, because our online world is completely transparent world, sometimes even more than we want it.
Yeah, and I think you can put user-centric really in the center of all the values.
User-centric in the center.
Yeah, everything you do and every value you do is like actually focusing on doing something special for the user, right? So our advice is not to outsource all work related to digital transformation and establish your know-how internally. If you anyhow need support in creating a strategy or creating some of those workshops and creating some of the how-tos, then I really recommend let's speak to each other. We offer strategic consulting for exactly digital transformation as well. Get in touch on searchmetrics.com/DSG or call us on our hotline 030-322-953-501. And last but not least, I just want to make sure that you're aware of our part 2 and part 3 of this digital disruption series. Part 2 is how to win the e-commerce battle, where we actually look at how can you build a niche within the e-commerce field to compete against eBay and Amazon.
Yeah, we opened many different topics. With the first one, we would continue definitely with e-commerce battle, and part 3 that will be in 12th of February 2019, so next year, is about display advertising for publishers. 5 new ways in turning content into revenue. I think this will also be really exciting, and stay tuned for us. Do we have any questions at the moment? Because I think we came to an end of a webinar.
Yes, we have some questions. Let me look at those. So there's one question regarding the design thinking workshop. The part learn about your audience It sounds that it's really cost intensive. How do you do this market research? How do you get all this customer feedback?
How do you get? There are various methods how to get customer feedback, but definitely it's not expensive. It's much cost effective than destroying and building something that has no use.
Yeah, it's as I said,
starting
just
small, creating MVP, creating a product that is able to work and give you feedback from it, and that will offer you first measurements. I will give you an example of a startup. They want to develop new product. They usually put landing page of a website even before the product is developed, just in order to reach out to people, to ask them to sign up for something and to get their feedback and their to see if people are interested, or they offer a survey before they build the complete product, or launching products step by step. And this is most of the time much easier than building the whole product and then testing afterwards.
and as I said, I mean, it's enough to just go out, go to the square in your city and just ask the people what they think about your product, right? Let them test the app, let them test.
Yeah, but not mom and dad and best friends, because this is usually the problem.
They're always kind.
Yeah, they're always kind. They will never give right feedback.
Okay, so I think that's it with questions. Thank you very much that you registered for this webinar, and we hope that it was fun for you. For me,
Yeah.
It was really fun.
We hope it was interesting. We opened many topics. We didn't have that much time. I think we used more time than we had to talk about everything, but stay tuned for our part 2 and part 3. And yeah, have fun today. Thank you
Bye-bye.
for listening. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.